So hi everyone, and welcome to today's webinar on OFC takeaways. My name is Priya, and I'm the marketing lead here at VTEX. So this talk is more of a conversational format, and it'll be about 20 minutes or so, followed by a Q&A. You can type your questions in the chat box or the Q&A box, and we'll get to them at the end of the talk. Also, we are recording this webinar, and the link will be up on our website in a day or two. All the attendees will also be getting a link in an email from me in a day or two again. Now let me introduce you to the panel today. We have here Craig Polk. Craig is a product development manager at VTEX. With over 2 decades of telecom experience at Bell Labs and Nokia, Craig has a rich work history of evolving communication networks through testing, customer support, and product development. His past work centered on innovation across several industry sectors, including healthcare, education, and environmental science. Craig holds a BE in electrical engineering from Stevens Institute of Technology and an MS from Purdue University. Craig strives every day to develop products that save lives, bring joy, and inspire the future. We are also joined here today by Richard Whitty, sales manager at VTEX. Rich graduated from West Point in 1987, and after serving in the Army, Rich started on a career selling capital equipment to semiconductor industries. Rich has many years of technical sales experience and engineering experience. And now over to Rich.
Okay, first thing we should do is take out the word decades. I'm not as old as I look. Welcome. We were at the OFC trade show, and we wanted to talk about the 5 general topics of conversation or takeaways from OFC 22. Held the first or second week of March in beautiful San Diego, California. It was really kind of a nice getaway from, from the Northeast.
Yeah. Rich, are you happy to be back in the Northeast with this nice weather we're having?
Oh yeah, it's Monday. It didn't get over freezing, and it's been between 23 and 25 degrees Fahrenheit every morning this week. So tomorrow, I guess we're looking forward to a big rainstorm and at least having 70 degrees. We'll be back to normal, which will be nice.
All right, awesome, cool. So let's get into some of these topics.
Sure. One of the things about OFC was that it wasn't extremely well attended, but the people who were in attendance certainly possessed a lot of industry experience, and we got into a lot of good technical discussions. Let's talk about the 5 top takeaways. You want to hit it, Craig?
Sure.
First one was 200 gig applications. Seems to be, at least in terms of products, at the forefront of a lot of our customers' minds right now.
Yeah, that's definitely true. I know there's a lot of buzz about higher rates going on, but what we're seeing in the market is really there's still a huge need for this 200 gig in data centers in both kind of form factors. We're seeing the QSFP56 and the double density. Some of the things we're kind of noticing, and the discussion was around, we're seeing more of the LC connector types in a lot of your longer ranges, which will have the LWDM or CWDM. And then we see MPO really applied in short reach. And again, it's mostly around data centers, and it's kind of really ideal for that kind of situation and in that sector. One of the things, though, that we've seen over the last couple of years, very recently, mostly because of the COVID pandemic, is there's been a large increase in the rollout of 5G technologies and usage for people in homes and mobile applications. And that really has been driving a kind of upward trend in the backhaul need for connecting to these 5G towers and back into the core. So we've seen a increase in discussion and need in 200 gig also in the telecom arena.
Sure. And then, the next thing is all the early adopters, the tier 1 people have really kind of adopted the 400 gig, but we see more and more of the companies following in the product life cycle. So 400 gig certainly up and coming and being adopted by more and more people as we speak.
Yeah, and that's definitely the case. One of the things that customers are kind of looking at is their cost analysis in these 400 gig upgrades. So we're seeing a lot of the focus around DACs, AOCs, and breakouts. In particular, the 400 gig to the single lambdas is pretty popular. So that's kind of focused around the 400 gig DR4, just because it has a application for compatibility across these 4 independent 100 gig connections. And so what this is allowing customers we're seeing in the industry is to be able to upgrade in kind of more of a piecewise place where they can utilize their 100 gig equipment and get a good return on it and start bringing in 400 gig. So that's really helpful to datacoms and data centers as well.
Yeah, that interoperability is a nice thing to have. We moved on a little bit, talking about people really looking at, the early adopters looking at 800 gig right now, and then also focusing forward on the 1.6 terabyte per second applications.
Yeah, and I think that's something we're going to start seeing more of. There's going to be a push for 800 gig. We're seeing that, right now, and we're expecting 1.6 to not be too far behind that. But a lot of this is really based on the customer applications that they're running. So we're seeing an increase in things like the VR and AR, especially things with 5G mobile, things with mobile CDN. And as these are all increasing, it's pushing for a lot of capacity in data centers to increase as well. Right now, there's a lot of work going on in the MSA for these different supported configurations, either it be across 8 lanes, 4 lanes, 2 lanes, or a single lane. And a lot of that work is just kind of trying to focus on, well, what's the best type of path that we can have as we increase these rates. So right now, looking for more of the early adopters and for some of the products that are coming out now and in the short term, we see a lot of this 800 gig focus on the 8x100. So that's just really using the architecture that's already present in the single lambda and just kind of expanding that out to a 100 gig option. We're expecting to see some additional things coming out in the next couple of years, possibly after 2023, that are more on the 200 gig per lane. And so some of the questions that kind of are around that is, why would we really be going to a 200 gig lane? And there's a very good cost savings and cost efficiency specifically for the 800, and it really gives us a better way and a better path to 1.6 in each connection and in each port. So those are some of the things we're going to be seeing as we move forward over the next couple of years.
Thanks, Craig. One of the things coming out of the semiconductor industry was we'd always see it was a very cyclical industry where we would see the hardware kind of ramp up and then slow down to wait till the applications would eat up enough of the hardware that we needed more hardware. So interestingly enough, I'd like to understand a little bit better those symbiotic kind of relationships or leapfrog issues where hardware versus applications. So I was wondering, Craig, can you explain some of the important factors in the product life cycle of datacom?
Yeah, sure. No, that's a good question. And I know it's something that it really impacts everybody, but it's sometimes not as well understood. And there's definitely this kind of give and take back and forth between hardware and software. Over the last couple of years, we've been seeing things in the semiconductor development really pushing for a larger increase in the datacom and then the telecom. That's where we see most of the hardware development going on. And then there's a software development for application that's starting to bring this into play and really use these additional speeds that are coming out. And if we actually look at these increases in the chips and what areas they're really working on, we see a lot of it is really focused on the transceivers. So we'll see a huge continual uptick in the amount of hardware that's coming out and the amount of rates that they're able to support. And so what this kind of really brings us to is what are some of the changes that are going on in the development life cycle. And over to the recent time, there's a lot more focus that's going on to product sustainability. So, some of us may have heard these, these ESG metrics that are coming out and how we're kind of designing around that. So they're really looking at more than just speed of the product, but what's really the energy impact, what's going to be the efficiency of it, how clean it is, what's the overall environment impact through all the stages of the life cycle, looking at wastes as well as emissions from production, what kind of equipment and material resources are needed and how that is sourced, and to really understand where those are coming from and the impact of sourcing those materials. And then what's really the reliability and quality kind of from a technical aspect, because we want to make sure that, we're not dropping the amount of quality that's being produced just to focus on sustainability. There's always a very strong focus of the quality that has to be kept at the forefront. And then what's the overall impact of cost? And this also takes into some consideration of reuse of the equipment, things like upgrade, what's the future potential, and how you can get a good return on your investment from these types of new technologies and products that are coming out.
Sure. And the next thing we're talking about, as these bandwidth and speed requirements increase, so does the need to get rid of some of the heat or high temperatures that are associated with reaching these. What was really interesting to me is this immersion technology that we're starting to see in data centers right now. I was wondering if you could tell us a little bit more about that.
Yeah, that's it is actually really interesting, the immersion technology that's coming out. Most of the focus in the past has been on what type of cooling can be done, usually with water or liquid nitrogen. But now, there's a lot of really interesting partnerships that are coming out, some of them with CERN that are really focusing on how is this going to work when we have a deionized solution that the equipment is in. So the electronics are actually sitting into this 18 mega ohm water, and all of the connections are submerged. And then we connect to the greater outside world through a kind of an extender, a short extender product that connects into the board level and then comes out where we can connect our normal transceivers. So that's really interesting to see why this is occurring. And a lot of the drive is around cost reduction and the impact to things of energy and maintenance, cooling. So there's a lot of benefits that comes from data centers across maintaining and cooling and powering these equipment in this new type of technology. So really looking forward to seeing how this is going to continue in the future and the amount of companies that are going to look to adopt this technology.
Can you tell me a little bit more about that cable that I'm looking at that extends into the 18 water?
Sure. Let me see. Let me just drop this so you can see it a little bigger. So I got an example right here. So this is really an extension cable that has this kind of hybrid flexible cable on it, which will bring a cage extender out of the water, and then it allows your regular transceiver, if you're using a commercial temp or industrial temp, to connect into here, and then you would connect up to a typical like MPO fiber, and this would allow you to either put in a DAC, an AOC, or a transceiver right in there. So it's really just bringing the connection outside of the water, because a lot of the current optical components aren't rated for going in these type of connections. So we just kind of bring the connection out, and having this capability of the water cooled right in the immersion really does give a much greater benefit than some of the typical technology that's been going on at this point.
Thanks, Craig. It was enlightening. Do we have any questions, Priya?
Yeah. Before getting to the questions, I saw someone ask in the chat if we will be sharing the recording. Yes, so in a couple of days, I'll be sending out a link to all the attendees with the recording of this webinar. I have one question. So, Craig, you mentioned a CDN in one of the slides. Can you explain what it is?
Sure. So yeah, sometimes I just use the the acronyms. So the CDN in mobile CDN, it's a content delivery network. So it's really some services that are focused on providing content in kind of cloud and edge architecture to bring it closer to the end user. So the goal here is to really have less latency and bring a better experience in the last mile. But as we're pushing more of this capability towards the last mile, there's this increase for data rates, on the front end, on the front haul, on the mid haul, and on the back haul. So all of those transceivers are looking in the future to upgrade to be able to support a higher bandwidth and bring that type of content closer to the user. So that was a good question.
Okay, thanks, Greg. I have another question here. When do you see the 1.6T standard coming out related to the 800 gig standard?
Yeah, that's a little harder to answer, just because we're seeing these different MSAs kind of come about. I know in December there was this new one that just kind of started out. That's a 4x400. And so we're seeing a lot of these standard works across the things like the 8x100 and the 200, then individual lanes. So they're a little behind, probably a couple years. I wouldn't really expect anything until after 2023, really, for the 1.6. Even though right now we're seeing some of the companies do engineering test capability and feasible test capability, showing how these standards could evolve and could work, but I don't think anything's going to really be set, unless for the next year or two.
All right, thank you. There was a question on chat to bring up the 400 gig DR4 slide. I'm assuming they have a question about it.
Okay. Oops. All right, just click back through. Oops. Okay.
So when could you have a question?
Okay, so I see the question about the cooling of the 200 gig optics outside of the extender cable. So that's kind of focused, I think, more on the immersion. So some of the cooling on that is really for ambient cooling, and also there's some heat sink capability that's on the extender cable. So hopefully that answers that question. Those are some of the two options I know about. Okay, so let's see. So I see there's a question about the 200 gig adoption over the 100 gig. Yeah, there is some work that's going on that they're trying to supersede that. I would agree with that, but I think it's really coming out for more of cost, because it does have a better cost efficiency for the 800, and it allows us to get to the 1.6. But I think there's going to be a greater focus on adopting the 800 for several companies, just because the 100 gig lane is much more kind of tried and true right now. So I see it kind of progressing that way in the short term, and then adopting to 200 gig later.
That 200 gig was the 4x4 you were talking about?
Yeah, that's what I was kind of referring to, but I think,
Okay.
This might have actually been slide 2. Sorry, I may have answered the question incorrectly. So this might be about current 200 gig. Yeah, so what we're seeing from the customer request is that they're looking to really get a lot of these in data centers, and there's been a big draw for backhaul from telecom. So that's where we see more of it coming from in a broader application. And then I see one more question about the silicon chips. And yeah, so there's a couple companies that do have some demos available for 800, and I know there's some switches right now that they're doing 1.6. I think Cisco has also done some demos on that. I don't remember that specific one, if it was going with the 8x100, but I know a lot of the earlier demos have been in that.
Yeah.
And oops. All right, so I think that's all that I see for right now. The questions coming up. But if you have any other questions and you need to get in touch with us, I can give you an amazing contact of Rich. We're always available to address any of your concerns and work through your solutions. And just in case you don't know this information, which you can get from our website, and if I can get through, whoops, went too far, all of my animations. So here's our email address and our telephone number, and we're always ready to help you with any type of solution that you're looking for. And so I'll hand it over to Rich if he has any other parting words of wisdom. I guess since we answered all of the questions that I saw.
No, thanks, Craig. That was enlightening. Thank you very much. Yeah, once again, please feel free to reach out. Our telephone number is 201-296-0145, and we'd love to help you out and guide you to any solutions deemed necessary for your datacom needs or telecom needs. So with that, Priya, would you like to lead us to the end?
Yeah, so I just want to thank everyone, Craig, Rich, and everyone who joined today. So if you have any questions, again, we have the email, we have the phone. We are in New Jersey, and so the past webinars, the recordings of the past webinars are also up on our website. So when I send out an email to everybody, I'll include the link to that page as well. So if you want to see those or forward it to your coworkers. So again, thanks everybody for joining, and have a great rest of the week.
Bye-bye.